So that's the thing. Look at all these technologies as a palette, a painter's palette, but a painter with a purpose. The purpose is to kind of paint a social picture, so everybody can understand where they are, to make transparent the complex social institutions, and that's the idea. And some of it comes natural, so some of this, if you run script, and you run, tension translated into density of points, run a networking script, and you can see where the forces are accumulating. And you can, if you in the elevator, you remember where the floor is, you can say, I must be somewhere up high or quite low. So there's always something telling you. Whereas modernist repetition is incredibly disorienting. Row houses, you're coming home in the evening, you have to concentrate. Where's my home? You can't find even your own home every single evening because they're all the same. In Brasilia, which building is it where I'm working? So which floor am I on? It's incredibly, there are two things which are incredibly disorienting. Repetition, particularly isotropic, if the grip is equal in all directions, which direction we're going. Symmetry breaking is good. At least I know I'm either on the North South in Manhattan. I still don't know whether I'm North and South, but I'm not either North or South, I'm not in the East West. So it's better to also differentiate this. So symmetry breaking equals information, that's information theory. But the other problem is, of course, visual chaos, the garbage spill. Repetition and garbage spill equally lacking of information, so it's menacing. In the world, we have to continuously move from one place to another and meet new people in different places. And then you have to kind of look at the GPS blue dot. But then you don't see what's going on, you miss out everything you want to prepare. So these kind of logics, you can then kind of run the script. Okay, then at a certain degree of density, I can flip into, make these openings. Then I have running a core through this. And when you then run, the core is differentially far from the surface. If you then run ribs from the core to the surface and then the taper, they're differently thick when they taper back. So when you have a deep beam at the core, in this direction the space is deeper. If it comes back, it always starts from zero. It's sure. So basically, the structure will tell you in which direction is the largest spatial expanse. So everything in this correlated world becomes a piece of information for other things. I call it inference potential. It's very important. It comes naturally with parametric modeling. So you can see that here with these ribs very far, deeper, very close, very shallower. But these are also have an inherent elegance and beauty if you optimize like this. And then you put an external surface on it. And this is kind of this orchestration of the elements, I think is very satisfying. And nearly comes natural, but we still should then track and make conspicuous and orchestrate the visual correlations, etc. So it's interesting about these experiments. There's a kind of network of similarities. You can orchestrate saying, okay, I have different timber structures, so they're different and yet similar in this way, but they're also similar here because it's from the geometry to geometry, but the material is different. Material is different and similar geometry, different geometry, similar materials. You can make a network of what belongs to what in a complex network. That's the way we can use this sociologically. And when we're coming to the kind of ordering of society, this was the first kind of ordering. Just make a loop, enclose something against the rest, and then have a series of nested sub-enclosures. So it's this enclosures with enclosures and the subdivision logic. That was, for most of history, was the only ordering. Overlap, as I said, is very important, came in very, very late, in the 70s, or theoretically in the early 60s. And I showed this earlier. So if you look at the history of settlement, there's always this nesting thing. It's very important because without settlement structures, you could not have a social organism. You couldn't move from the animal kingdom into the human world, because the human world is about structured, larger groups, hundreds, thousands. You need to recognize them through where they are. They need to be placed and relate, and all the activities you have together in various subgroups need to be laid out so you can find them. It's a memory structure, and it accumulates and grows with the society. But also, very important is this, and that's the importance of semiology. There's no human society which doesn't have settlement structures which structure the social organism, and where they have graphic transformation to distinguish different characters. Hierarchy, social group affiliation, male, female, married, unmarried. Without this, you couldn't have an ordered social life. And as I said earlier, it's very important, the fashion system, when you go into a room, you know, who's the boss? Where are the engineers? Where are the investors? And so you have this laid out, the kind of cooperative organism, but you also have the graphic overlay, because at this point you have maybe the physical options of making structures are too similar to represent the social differences, so you need to start putting the graphics on yourselves and onto the buildings. There is no society which doesn't have this ornamentation either on themselves or on their environments. And it matters because these tribes are bone-breakingly poor. They're on the edge of survival, but they're investing in all this ornamentation. And to this day, if you reflect how much you pay in your wardrobe, of your annual income, this is vital. No society could survive. Those tribes which didn't do this had no chance of survival, because they have kind of social ordering dysfunctionality. It's universal. But also the ordering of space, so kind of, if you don't do this, you will have physical, hierarchical battles continuously, or social ordering problems continuously. But also if you don't do friend and foe distinction, whatever you, or hierarchy, professional, occupational. It used to be extremely rigid. Now we can self-fit. But this was policed, of course. You're going to feed choice in what you're wearing, and how you ornament your house. But it's absolutely universal. It only exists still in institutions which are extremely important and extremely tense. Everybody in their place, social, locational semiology, and this. They still do that in England. There were even the barristers wear robes and so on. But that's why we also work on this. I'm working on Tectonism, 21st century dinner jacket, super light, stretchy. I can run with it. It's breathing. You have all sorts of technical issues. You have cooling fibers. You have movement management. Where is it stiff? Where is it flexible? Where is it breathing? Where is it absorbing moisture? You could differentiate the thing. Actually, I didn't have that. We did a whole kind of collection for sportswear, etc. And how do you change, transform the different pieces and recombine and so on and so forth. And so we did a lot of that because it's important, and the semiology goes through fashion, interiors, furniture, architecture, urban, and everything. So it's really always been going on that you had, piano nobile, the kitchens and stables, the rustication. I mean, this is semiology, this is ornament. You want to express something, the fine, polished private quarters, etc. In different orders, like I said earlier, the Doric, Ionic, Corinthian for different types of institutions. Theater is Corinthian, the courthouse is Doric. So all this became kind of used. They use these tectonic systems to articulate, and it's a universal. And I want to show you this because to distinguish our task as architects, the way we use functional subsystems and engineering, and maybe orchestrates to articulate the logic of an institution, which enhances orientation and wayfinding. So this scheme is in the suburbs of Strasbourg. It's 2 car parks, a tram station, and a bus station. So imagine in this kind of world, car parks, bus station, tram station, it would totally disappear in this kind of no man's, nowhere texture. But we create something which becomes conspicuous by doing another thing. So these are the 2 car parks, but they belong together, so we tied it together across the street. And this is the roof, which is the tram station cutting in and the bus coming around, and it's tying it together. And we're using curvature to tie it together, so when the cars are sitting there occupying they're also showing the way. So this is a kind of strong articulatory piece. And again, you make the cutout to show the tram, the bus. It's a park and ride scheme, something which would absolutely disappear in this kind of no man's land usually. Everything is technically perfect, but we're doing more. You know, you can have a tarmac or concrete surface, and we use that strategically. So this is the kind of lines. And when we choose lighting, we wanted to use the street lights to work with and enhance the swarm of parking lines. To not clutter up with all sorts of random stuff, they're alive and work. They're growing in height the closer you come to the station. And then something reappears, the same formal affiliation, then these things become similar to the columns, and the lines become similar to lights in the roof and cuts in the roof. So we're orchestrating, nothing has a problem with functionality. You always have so many choices, so that in the end what we choose, we orchestrate for formal compositional reasons. But formal compositional reasons are not just I'm an artist and I like this. This is formal compositional for legibility, for articulation, for communication, which is a fundamental core competency of architect. With no offense for the engineers, but you know those spaces where architects haven't done that, basements, backyards, where the spaces disintegrate into some kind of visual chaos. Because in a public space is okay, and the few people who live there, work there, doesn't matter. But that's the difference between architecture and engineering. Pure engineering would make technical choices to the last nth degree of cost and bolt things together, which are just visually uncoordinated. That's the world of backyards and factory spaces and basement spaces. Now we need to realize that we can be tough technically and cost-wise within a 5% margin of that engine. But we generally are, that's the difference between architecture and engineering. But it's built on engineering. And so this is a ceiling of this shed, and this is a floor. And the similarity comes out of they work together orienting. You can say, it's an absurd formalism. No, it's formalism in the sake of social functionality. And at night there's some swarm pulling it through. Okay. So that's the idea of semiology. You can go further if you actually look at graphic systems in the street. This kind of idea of semiology, of encoding a visual language. We need it, we have it in the traffic. But traffic is relatively, because it's kind of safety, and you might make a crash and hurt yourself. But traffic is a very simplistic, primitive task of ordering social life. The world of our actual activities in the city, in the institution, the conference, and universities needs that kind of semiology much more. But I say it's a core competency of architecture. That's what we should be doing, like this park and bike. It's very simple functionally as well. But we can do so much more. And we can, some of this traffic sign system, there's a grammar. Each space should be a complex sign out of multiple affiliations, like a sentence with many words, making many connections to other sentences, etc. So here you're actually combining signs into a complex sign. It's not kind of each is unique. There is kind of red is prohibitions, yellow is warnings, blue is must do, this is not allowed to do, and then there's icons, they can iterate across these, and there's the outer shape, so there's a number of components which come together, and it's a kind of visual language, and we can do something similar in the world of design and architecture. And this is university design, you can color code initially on a diagram, but why not color code the real space? Well, I'm coding in a different way. And how they're kind of subdivided and connected and overlapping, etc. So we're doing this kind of, where you say we're doing something with shells. Shells give a guy nice unity. There's a center, a space rather than flat. Shells give you, but also they still could be open and yet give you unity. They could be different. You could make a creased, a faceted, or smooth shell. They more or less have similar shell action, so that it becomes a choice where you can encode the School of Science, the School of Art, and the School of Humanities, if you like. And then have them across many different scales and variations. Then you have different things like lecture hall, library, workshop, seminar. They reoccur in all these different schools. So you can then run the different shells across these. So you have, 4 shells and 3 these kind of forms and 3 shells gives you already 3 times 4, 12 at least combinations. So you get a combinatoric logic. And then you can make combinations. You can combine by melding, you can connect through interim, direct, one is dominant, the other is dominant. There's an algebra or grammar of connectivity of different types. You can also combine different shells, same shells, etc. You can nest them, overlap them, and articulate the diagram, functional diagram. Let's say if you do things through the organization, you do a bubble diagram sometimes, right? And when you do them, you use curve, right? Because you see the things properly. If you intersect 2 curves, it's easier to see the overlap as 2 rectangles. There's some kind of about convexity. When you then translate it into a final design, it's all rectilinear, it all disappears. The legibility of the diagram gets degenerated. When you also have to type pack, this doesn't fit into the side. So what's if you would kind of not degenerate the diagram, which for graphic reasons you make as articulate as possible, so you can actually orient and see the ordering in the diagram. Why doesn't it become the building the hyperdiagram? Doesn't degenerate, but it keeps enhancing. And that's the idea here. So then you can have different tectonic articulations, there are different options, and you can re-affiliate again along different dimensions, so you have distinct outer shell, but similar reticulation, etc., etc. You can also transmute and morph from one to the other if you have a gradual transition. Instead of invented patterns, you can have topology optimization and network optimization. Anyway, and so you can generate something which generates variety, complexity, layeredness, and you can generate something which now looks complex, you don't understand it, but when in a space, you know where you are. The overlap between these 2 faculties and the lobby between these 3, between the workshop and the lecture hall, and this is the direction of the lecture hall, etc., etc. And you follow the trajectories. this is the kind of what project I'm talking about, the kind of using tectonism for semiological articulation. This is the same with, you know, diagramming, for instance, something like convex spaces are meeting zones of various scales, concave vexes are working zones, but these two are distinguished from they're still most closed versus open network of these are open social and circulation spaces, but each is parametrically variable. So there could be many shapes. You can always track it's a working space, it's concave. They are always convex. You can then think about also morphing from one to the other. Degrees of pure work, pure meeting. So you have parametric grammar. And you can then also see how they nest, meeting nest into work, work nest into work, overlap. Two work can generate a new work, two work can generate a meeting and a work can generate a meeting or work, etc., etc. So you can have a lot of options of articulating. And then we going into 3D. You can also make it kinetic, and you can still legible at each state. And you can then have an overall color gradient, for instance, or an overall gradient from more closed zones and more open and fluid, where this kind of working spaces in the lobby, kind of quick work, en passé, meeting quick, so you can have them like this, semi-articulate. And then you can three-dimensionalize this. The same logic can be used for the furniture. So the concave form is a work desk, the convex form is the meeting desk. You can make them embedded in the open landscape and so on and so forth. And then you can animate it by bringing the crowds in. So this is the idea, that you can generate something which has, everything has information. You can intuitively feel language. Like any child, you can all learn a new language, you can learn lingual language. If you use it, you learn it. And therefore, everything now to some extent, of course, environment gives you lots of tools. You intuitively know where you are and what's happening. But it's very stereotypical, it's not very nuanced. There's few categories, you know whether in office building or residential, and sometimes even that's gets obfuscated. There's 5 types of spaces. You know when you're in a corridor, but I want these kind of bleeding and in-betweening. For instance, if you go to Google Campus New York, the corridor is not just a corridor, there's lots of things that are going on. It's widened into a space, so there's lots of in-betweening, lots of subcategories. Ceilings high, ceilings low, carpet throwing in, quieter. We get some of these clues, but this is systematizing such a language to give you a lot of ordering and allow everybody to quickly intuitively find each other, notice what's going on, where's to be expected. If I linger around here, who might come around, what might be happening, what is the social protocol inscribed here. We need this to be much more rich and nuanced. And I'm saying is that like a blind person can read the whole text by driving their finger along this dot making, so we can go through space and take in all of that and intuitively empower. Yeah. You said it's our open-ended. So now, what we're doing here is therefore different places, in this case it's similarly encoded, trigger different behaviors. You slow down in the carpet area, in the public space you're more quick. In the public space somebody is wanting to talk to you, whatever you want. In a private space you have to engage, hello, and this. So each type of space, the ambience tells you and puts you in a mood to be receptive, what is allowed, what is not allowed, what is expected. So this is what we're trying to do. We also when it reconfigures, there's new things possible. So what we're doing here, we're saying the meaning, the social meaning of the spaces is actually the behavior of those people. What should they do? How do they interact? Are they sitting down? Are they staying long? Are they moving through? This behavior is the meaning of these semiology. So we can bring the meaning and purpose, same thing, into the design, and we should do that. So my challenge is this. if you draw a building or a piece of furniture, animate the purpose. What is this for? What could it be used for? Then you're an architect or designer. If you just draw the piece, then you're not a designer because you just draw something which can be measured, can be materialized, can be technically translated, but you don't test and investigate and imagine the purposes. Of course, if you only reproduce stereotypes, this is an interesting form. It changes and it's slightly amorphous. What is it? Well, the interesting thing is it could be many things. It could be the form. It could be an in-between situation. If you only draw stereotypes, of course, then you know what it is for. You only have 5 things. And this is a dining table. This is a working desk. This is a sofa, and that's it. Then, but even in the 70s, when you have social revolution, you have sit-ins and all sorts of situations. You break out of these typologies. Then you have to investigate what they mean, what they're for. And we're also doing empirical work, and then we are simulating, testing our environments, different kinds of groups, different teams, visitors. What might they do? What would they do? And you can encode their behavior. They're attracted by certain things. Different groups are attracted to different things. There's different protocols here. When there's somebody sitting down, you sit either close to it because it's a private space. Here you sit further away from it in this space, so it's encoded. And we can run this and simulate and optimize for social interaction. That's the idea. So we're saying every model, which is an architectural model, should have always the crowds running. And if you shift the sofa, new things happen. And if you re-encode the ceiling and says this belongs not to the private, different things happen. And if you want to coordinate thousands of people within hundreds of meeting rooms and zones and 50 entrances, and you will test in different differentiated types of agents, we can run thousands of agents, then you can kind of say how many people will encounter each other, how many people will convert encounters and communications, will it be long communications, small communications, one-to-ones, larger groups, smaller groups. You can anticipate this, and you can also design strange things. If you do this, you don't know what you do. You need to run and imagine and play it out. And so that's what we've been doing, and bringing the meaning and purpose into the geometry together, and also connect transformation. The big thing that instead of having 100 spaces, you can transform one space into several things. It's very safe spacing, and it's not so distant. And you can help cajole and enhance and signal. A small group is forming, so more people can see and join, or separate out, and walls opening up. So as a kind of dynamism, robotic, intelligent, architectural agents facilitate formation of social interactions or break it up if it's too long. And you can also have these zones, overlap, integration, furniture coming in, and dynamize the situation. So in the bureau, in the corporate environments, where it matters, that you quickly move from one team to another, from one situation to another, small group, large groups, big gatherings, one-to-ones, concentrated work, and we even do the physical models of this. But then we're also testing it with agents. And that is really the meaning, that the social ordering effect and the kind of situations you can generate is what it's all about. You don't create an architecture for other architects and say, oh, nice ceiling. And that's really not what we're about. Is it a systems of ceilings where this tells me it invites for a certain situation versus another? What is it similar to? What do I can remember and anticipate? The furniture tells me a lot on what can I do, who to expect, how to behave, can I join, can I not join? Body postures and filling out helps as well. So that's what it's all about. Here is kind of for the